Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm introducing a new series that are combining one of my favorite two things in life, history and video games. Of course, I've got other likes as well, but those are two of them. But in this series, I will be going over games that use historical battles or events and tell the tale of how they were used in the game and what battle was like in real life. So, without further ado, let's get into the first episode. But before that, if you like history, you like video games, you like first-person shooters, you like war, you like everything video games or history, this channel's for you. So why don't you consider subscribing and join our community, and you can comment down below if there's any historical battles or historical moments in video games you want me to cover, and we'll do it in this series I'm introducing. So let's get into it. So, by December of 1944, the Allied forces had already tried to enter Germany through Holland with Operation Market Garden, which was a critical failure. But by this point, the troops were very exhausted from the rapid movement and fighting. So General Dwight D. Eisenhower, who would of course help plan Operation Overlord, which was the invasion of Normandy, France, which got our Allied forces into Europe on June 6, 1944. So he would of course later as well become president, but he would have the troops stay in the Ardennes region, but that would become a dangerous call. Also, I forgot to mention one little quick point here. The Allies had no winter gear. It's December, it's winter time in Europe, of course, and they got no winter gear because of supply issues, due to the fact that to get before, of course, this point, when they invaded Normandy, they actually opened up that way to get supplies in, but due to how deep they were in Belgium at this point. So due to that, they actually had supply chain issues due to they had to go all the way from France. So it took a little bit longer. And as I described the more of this battle or this time period for the Allied powers in World War II, you'll understand why they didn't have any winter gear. I want to mention as well that the Allies at this point had controlled the air, and so it was very hard for the Germans to make any advances, but this was kind of going to be their last hurrah. So, of course, the Axis powers, or specifically the Germans, needed a win. They had lost Normandy. They have just, France is liberated. Paris, of course, was held by the Germans for a long time, and so it's been finally liberated by the Allies. And so with the direction of Hitler, they would launch an attack on the Allies in the Ardennes region. One thing to note about the Allies that will be important, during the attack, the Allied and Axis lines would become mixed due to the outstretching of troops in those forced regions and supplies. So most of the time, both sides would just happen to walk in each other's lines. So now I will go over my favorite part of the battle, which is in the Call of Duty DLC, Call of Duty 1, which was released back in 2003, United Offensive. This is very focused on the 101st Airborne. That's like the focus, because the 101st Airborne is one of the most famous pieces of the Battle of the Bulge, which took place in the Ardennes region. And so you will see over footage I've already probably started playing of Band of Brothers, because they have about 2 or 3 episodes that go over what happens in this battle that the 101st Airborne did, and also just explaining some parts of what it looked like. So, of course, during this attack, the Germans would end up surrounding Bastogne, which is a city that the 101st Airborne Division was defending. Specifically, the 506 Parachute Infantry Regiment, which if you've seen Band of Brothers like I referenced, you will know about Easy Company, who is heavily featured in that mini-series, which of course was part of this defense. So during this attack, the 101st had no supplies, no air or tank support, just themselves, and were being constantly shelled by artillery almost every day. Now, I am going to play this clip without me talking because I can't do it justice, but this is kind of what it would have looked like during an artillery shelling a day in Bastogne. As the 101st were in the force region of Bastogne, but they were trying to protect that, of course.
Incoming! Take cover! Take cover! Take cover! Come on! Find some cover! We got it! Hero! Find some cover! Find a foxhole! Come on! Take cover! Take cover! Come on! Find some cover! cover! Find some cover!
For some reason.
So yeah, pretty intense, huh? But if you haven't seen Band of Brothers, I highly recommend, if you're interested at all about World War II or just wars and history, American history too, watch it. It's a really good watch. It's interesting. It's fun. They also include interviews from the actual people who served that the actors, of course, are portraying. And it's just a really good watch. So I highly recommend you check it out. But, of course, during this time, the Germans would have sent a letter to the commander of the 101st that would ask for their surrender, and all he responded with is nuts. That actually happened. There's actually a statue, I think, of where he was born, or where he died, where it's his face, and then under it says nuts. It's freaking awesome, dude. Man, we were good. We were pretty cool. Yeah, we got stuff done back then. What a troll, dude. But anyway, it's a testament to how unwilling, of course, they were to surrender or lose. They would rather die than surrender. But Patton's 4th Armored Division would, of course, break through German lines and open up a way out of Bastogne. And the 101st, due to being surrounded to this day, will deny that they needed saving from Patton's 4th Armored, of course, of the surviving veterans. And it's a really cool testament to how hard those men were and how willing they were to fight. Very cool. And of course, the 101st would go on to liberate the town of Foy and others as well. And so before we jump into the game, I wanted to give you troop counts from both sides. The U.S. had 687,498 before going into the Ardennes region, but after the Battle of the Bulge, had 680,706. So, took some losses, but you'll see how they fare due to the Axis powers of the Germans. The British, who didn't have a major role but had a role in this Battle of the Bulge, had 111,904, but after had 11,100. And the Germans had 498,622, but after the battle had 425,941. So as you can see, the Germans got schwacked in the battle, you know. So, but now into the game. Cut game footage. So now into the game. Call of Duty 1 was released in, I'm sorry, I got that wrong, 2004, my B, and was heavily inspired by Steven Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan and the Medal of Honor World War II shooters. As if you don't know the history of Medal of Honor, those were originally supposed to be Saving Private Ryan tie-in movie game, but it eventually morphed into the World War II shooters of Medal of Honor. And it's very interesting to see how Call of Duty back then was the Medal of Honor killer. Now we're trying to get first-person shooters out of the Call of Duty killers. Very, very interesting as times change, you know. Very cool, very cool. But we will be talking about the expansion pack United Offensive, which was released on day 1 of release for the main game, which is really interesting. I wonder what, you know, I wonder if it came with the game or if it was, you had to buy it secondhand. If you know, put it in the comments. I'm actually very interested to know. I didn't really research that just because I was really trying to get the battle aspect of this video. But the United Offensive Campaign pack takes you through the Battle of the Bulge, which we'll be talking about today, the Battle of Kursk, and the invasion of Sicily. But today, of course, we'll be focused on the Battle of the Bulge. The portion of the campaign that is the Battle of the Bulge is only 4 missions long, and that takes you through the 101st experience during the Bulge. It's about a, I think my footage was about 3 or 4 hours, I think. So it's a medium campaign for the Bulge section. So very, very good time. It's also the first time they introduced sprint in the game, and it's really basic. Like, you can run for 2 seconds and you're like breathing hard. It's awesome. It's great. Gotta love early mechanics that become staples. So of course this is only a sneak peek at what they did due to it being a Call of Duty campaign, but nonetheless, let's step into it. Let's put our boots on, step into the campaign. The first mission puts us in the deep forest of Bastogne, and we are on a jeep patrol at this point, but we are introduced to one of the characters that are in the Bulge campaign, which is Sergeant Moody, and of course we're introduced to ourselves, Corporal Riley. We are instructed to scout ahead, and like in real life, we happen to stumble upon a German advance that begins to open fire and overwhelm us, taking some men down. We are of course forced to retreat, only to escape with one jeep as one is blown up because of the German advance, with 4 men of the original count. As you do some driving section on the rail shooting at the enemy, you make it to the American lines, and and then you realize, wow, we're close to the enemy. This is crazy. Like, only like a drive, maybe a couple miles. That just really sets in the perspective that at any moment you could be attacked or overrun. It's not, you know, at this point, you know, I feel like if you know anything about World War II, it's very scary because it kind of mirrors World War One, the battle, the Bulge, at least for the 101st Airborne, where you see in the Band of Brothers show that they are like a cross, like World War One, like they're just watching each other. It's crazy. You know, on Christmas Day in the show, they're singing Christmas songs in German. It's insane. Like, it's just so scary. Like, the fact that they could just shoot you at any time, or like throw, like, I mean, of course, use artillery. It's insane. It's insane. It's crazy. It's crazy. You know, it just goes to show that, you know, war sucks and it's scary. But yeah, so of course we arrive to warn the Captain Foley, who is another character we're introduced to that'll stick around for these missions, of the German advance. And then we are instructed to go dig into a foxhole because artillery has a good chance of coming down like rain. And of course, we're attacked by artillery and the German advance begins. And it does, this German advance does a really good job showing how intense it was when the Germans had all the firepower and the U.S. only had machine guns and rifles. And of course, you get objectives to help hold off the advance to really tie you into it and put you involved. You start by using a Browning machine gun to fight off. Actually, you help Sergeant Moody. You have to cover him to go throw smoke for the C-47 bombers to hit the German advance. And then you get up, you go down the line, and you use a Springfield sniper rifle to take out some of the men advancing into the forest, and I think some MG-42 machine gunners. And then you, of course, find out that part of your line's broken down. The Germans have advanced in, and when you walk into the broken line, you really see how the Germans have destroyed your fellow soldiers and how you got to fight to take the line back because they're really pushing through. And, of course, due to the overwhelming panzers firing on your position, you use a bazooka to take one, two, or three of them down. But they're just replaced like it's plastic toys. They keep coming and coming. It feels like this wave will not stop. And of course, with the overwhelming force of Germans taking men down beside you, all you feel is lost as you are entering the last rounds of your Airborne Garand into the enemy. But before you can be killed and overrun, Patton's 4th Armored, like in real life, saves the day. So this mission really mirrors what happened on the day of 26th in December of 1944, which was the day Patton's 4th Army finally broke through and was able to help get the German lines pushed back. Of course, now we're on to our next mission, which takes us back into the forest, but this time it's different. We are on the offense. You're not on the defense. You're on the offense. You meet 2 squad leaders named Ramirez and Jones, and you are tasked to do a mission with those 2, and it is to Ramirez is tasked with taking the crossroads near Foy, and which is a town, and Jones is fighting with you. You're taking him and his squad to take an observation point situated in a large farmhouse. But as you move out into an embankment, a soldier is hit as an ambush ensues. Once you've defended Sergeant Moody, because he rushes out to save him, you push on. The soldier goes back to the medical tent, and you, Sergeant Moody, and the rest of the men push on. You then begin the ambush on the farmhouse. When you walk up to see that Jones is pinned down and taking casualties, you begin to recognize the chaos of this attack as you are moving up, watching the men to your left and right go down. You of course force your way to attack an enemy position to get a grip on the fight and push into a farmhouse area. Once you've cleared the area, you find a German officer in the house who's the sole survivor of this attack, and he tells you about the POWs that are in the barn as those men probably stumbled upon the German lines and they took them prisoner, as the Americans did much in the battle. But after he warns his fellow Germans of Americans and another firefight begins, you are racing under fire to save your men as you do not want the Germans to get in there and kill them. So you're running and gunning, and then you finally push into the barn and find the men are injured, but they're okay. And then you begin to push to the crossroads to help Ramirez as he is having trouble and you want to provide backup. As you get to the crossroads, you see the chaos of Ramirez's men being massacred by a house with multiple MG-42 machine guns. As you flank through the trenches, taking Germans out, you have finally taken the house. But like war always is, you have to push up the road to defend from a counterattack of Germans because they do not want to lose that house. As you are in position, the ambush is going well until a panzer pulls up and begins to open fire on you and your men. But after obtaining a bazooka, you take it down. And then you begin the attack on Foy, which this mission is very heavily inspired by Band of Brothers episode, The Breaking Point. Once the whistles are blown, you are running straight into artillery fire as you see men next to you blown up or mowed down by machine gun fire. But as you push from hay bale to hay bale, you finally make it to a shed. But to have the 4th Armored Division back you up, of course, you've got to take out the spotter in the window to stop the accurate artillery as you're taking MG42 fire in the fields foy behind these big hay bales. Once you've taken out the spotter, of course, you push into the town, and after destroying a flak gun, you then go building to building, clearing out the German defense. The intensity that the devs really put into this mission of urban fighting and house clearing is amazing to play, even though it's very old game. It's really fun to see how intuitive they were, placing AI movements and having them rush you and really put you on your toes, as you could be running low on the health bar system, which is in this game. It's just really cool to play. Of course, after you do that, you finally push into a church that has all the last Germans in there, finishing them off. You then begin to take artillery fire, and you've noticed the Germans have begun a counter-offensive with anti-tank crews, and of course artillery trying to take out the tanks that backed you up. And I will say this as a side note, this whole defense section is really annoying though, due to the fact that if you reload at the wrong time, you will fail, as I did, but it's a fun mission overall. But to wrap this up, this mission, you push to a nearby house over a bridge and destroy a Tiger tank and some Germans. I will say these missions do a really great job in showing you how the Germans had tactics but were just being outgunned at this point to the battle of the war. The Americans, I mean the Allies in general, had air superiority and ground superiority. It's very interesting to note at this point in the war. But before we go on to the final mission, I want to show this clip that is from the battle in Foy that actually I really wish they put this into the game, but of course it's not a Band of Brothers game. One of the leaders, Lieutenant Spears, is being taken over as the commanding officer of this operation for Easy Company due to the other lieutenant really crumbling under pressure. And to set this up, the original CEO had sent men on the other side of the town to flank around, but they're pinned down, as are Spears and the men with him. So in a pretty much a Hail Mary, he sprints across the road, and the Germans and the Americans are in awe. And I'm just going to show you this clip just so you see it and notice how crazy, but it's real. This actually happened. It's been confirmed by multiple sources of Easy Company, of course. And I don't think that Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks would have, as they produced the show and helped get it on the ground, I don't think they would have allowed that big false happen, I guess. But anyway, side note, I'm going to put it up in the corner. Tom Hanks is actually got a little Easter egg in there as British paratrooper, so I highly recommend you watch it. But check out this clip.
Hey, that's right, wait here!
Item Easy 6!
What the hell? Oh, Dixie, back here!
At first, the Germans didn't shoot at it. I think they couldn't quite believe what they were seeing. But that wasn't the really astounding thing. The astounding thing was that after he hooked up with I Company, he came back.
So pretty cool, huh? Yeah, Spears, pretty cool. Highly recommend. He has a lot of stories in the show that are really cool. But to wrap this up, we finally go into our final Bulge mission, which takes us to Nouvelle, Belgium. If that's pronouncing it right. I'm really sorry if I didn't pronounce it right. Which was one of the final 2 towns the 101st took before being relieved. You of course begin the mission riding on a tank with Captain Foley, telling you about the unknown aspects of the German defense in town due to the bad weather denying any recon of the area by plane. But, of course, you are then thrust into the battle, going building to building, clearing out the hold-up Germans intent on killing you. But then as German artillery begins pouring on the buildings, you are forced into a basement, which is then enclosed as artillery destroyed the stairway to the first floor. But with one satchel charge, you are back in the fight, pushing up the road to the main mansion full of Germans. Once cleared, the Germans begin the biggest fight you see in the entire set of missions. They start with troops rushing into the mansion and you and the men destroying them as they come. But of course, one panzer comes down, which is a piece of cake, but You then have to run back outside and defend Sergeant Moody and his squad so they can help you reinforce and help with the German attack, as they were in the backside of the town and they're rushing to this big building to help you fight. Once you've of course defended them well and got them back into the building, you push back into the mansion to defend it. And this is when it gets rough. Panzer after Panzer comes out, and what's really frustrating about this part is the fact that the Panzerschreck ammo is in one spot. And it's this freaking little like walk into the building, and there's no cover really except a wall, and like if you're trying to rush to grab stuff because you're getting shot at, the Panzer will just sit and shoot you and kill you. It's so annoying, but you have to keep running back and ammo. So I mean, they will kill you unless you stay prone. It's a design flaw that's kind of annoying, but it's okay. But of course, as you keep fighting Germans and Panzer after Panzer, the men become hundreds and the Panzers become tens to 20s as they begin assaulting multiple sides, leaving you ultimately defenseless as the Germans begin assaulting the mansion. They're taking out man after man, but before you're fully overrun and all hope is lost, some bombers come in and save the day, destroying the Panzers and of course causing the Germans to retreat. But when you look around, you really see all the bodies around, and it's really horrifying to look at because all these German troops and U.S. troops slain in the mansion and outside just mold or kind of mesh together and really show that these are just standard men. Of course, this is a video game, but it really shows just how those men are the same despite having two different flags. And that's the one thing about war that is very interesting, is that no matter what, everyone is fighting for their reasons, and at the end of the day, the only thing that makes them different is a flag on their shoulder. So anyway, these missions show you how far both sides are willing to sacrifice for this town, and these missions do show the desperation the Germans had to successfully repel the Allies from entering Germany, because after the Bulge, the Allies would of course become successful by pushing into Germany and finding the horrors of what would come due to the concentration camps and all the POW treatment they did in general. Of course, we would know later, of course, the Battle of the Bulge went into 1945, which is when the year the war ended. And we would find out, Hitler would end up taking his life, due to losing the war. And I'm sure he understood he would be tried for a lot of crimes. We would see pretty much our teaser into the Cold War due to how Berlin was split between the Soviet Union, Soviet Union and Allied powers, and of course we would have West and East Berlin, which would of course usher in the beginning of the Cold War as we go into the 50s, the 60s, 70s, 80s, and then finally ending, of course, the Cold War in the early 90s, about 1989 into 1990. So, but those are videos for another day if I can discuss that topic. But Call of Duty United Offensive is a really well-made campaign that shows what the 101st Airborne went through during the Battle of the Bulge, and how, no matter the odds, fought back with tooth and nail to win the battles they set forth in. This game really does a great job showing the low supplies in the first mission, as you only have 18 rounds in your M1 Garand and several grenades. And by the next 3 missions, you have an abundance of ammo, of course. That is Call of Duty. It's Call of Duty. But it's a really cool detail the devs wanted to include to show how low supplies were and how due to supplies being able to be broken in, or how well supplied they are through the rest of the missions. Also, of course, the use of dates and locations you see in the missions really gives them a sense of realism, as you realize how real this was way back in 1944. But of course, they were doing it in real life, not a COD campaign. But of course, after the end of these missions, and of course real life, the 101st would push into the Rhineland and move into the Alps and discover one of the many concentration camps that is a dark reminder of how far humans can go in cruelty. And that is Call of Duty United Offensive and a little bit of history of the 101st Airborne. But you've made it this far into my ramblings. I just want to say thank you for watching this first episode, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to really watch. I'm really excited to start this series because of my love of history and video games. And if you really enjoyed this first episode and you're new here, you've made it. So subscribe. Come on. If you liked it, you're going to get more of it. But for everyone else, and including you if you've subscribed, welcome. Go ahead and hit that like button on the video, and of course leave a comment on what you thought about the video. And if you have a game you would like to be discussed on the history aspect, leave it in the comments below. And also, don't forget to hit that notification bell to have future updates on when I upload next. And again, Thank you for checking out this first episode. I really want to continue this as a series, and I really think it's interesting, as I don't really see many YouTubers or any at all really doing the type of videos I'm doing for this series. So until next time, though, peace.